Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dallas ISD Bond 2020 virtual community meeting, for the replacement school for Lenore Kirk Hall Elementary School. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can share your comments in the Facebook comment section, or if you're joining us on Zoom call, then you can simply raise your hand or share your comments and thoughts in the chat room. We're going to pause now for interpretation to come in and give instructions in Spanish.
Hola, buenas tardes. Bienvenidos a la reunión del bono del 2020. Si usted si usted está conectado en Facebook, puede poner sus preguntas en la sección de los comentarios. Si usted nos acompaña en el Zoom, puede poner sus preguntas en el chat. Ahora vamos a interpretar en español. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, puede seleccionar la opción en español en la parte derecha inferior de la pantalla, lo que es el icono del mundo. Si por algún motivo no se escucha el intérprete, regresa al inglés y vuelva a intentarlo al español. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Again, we want to welcome you to the Bond 2020 meeting for the Lenore Kirk Hall Elementary School. This is a proposed replacement school for Dallas ISD, and we're very excited to have us joining today. With no further ado, we want to begin with greetings from our school's principal. Go ahead, principal.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day as we embark on this important work. You know, our students are the future, and making sure that our building inspires our students and their ability to dream. It's no small task. And so I want to thank everyone that's already worked extremely hard on the front end to put this together. Again, I want to thank you for being here, the community, parents, teachers, Trustee Mackey, thank you for your time. And we look forward to continue collaborating with you.
Thank you so much, Principal. We're excited today also to have the school's executive director on the call. Ms. Kelly, would you like to bring in remarks at this time?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Ms. Bell. Well, good evening, everyone. To Trustee Mackey, our parents and community and valued stakeholders. It is truly my pleasure to be a part of this great vision for LK Hall, and we look forward to rebuilding and building a wonderful legacy for our students and our greater community. We are available for questions. We're excited about the stellar leadership of Hall under the great Dr. Borrego, and we appreciate your commitment and your support. So thank you so much for being here, and we will continue a legacy of greatness for our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Executive Director Kelly. We're excited today and pleased to be able to have with us the trustee for this for Hall Elementary School, who also happens to be the Board of Trustee President. President Mackey, if you would like to make remarks at this time.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I know this has been a long time coming to get LK Hall a beautiful new building, and I am so excited that we get to hear and dig into this. So I want to thank the principal, the executive director, principal, all your staff and their hard work this beginning of the school year, and especially to all the community members and families that have taken part in this so far and are going to continue to help make their voice heard and ensure that the students of LK Hall get an incredible school that they deserve. So I'm going to sit back. I'm not going to say many things, but I am going to be taking a lot of notes on what people are saying and the direction we're going. And it's my role in this process to help just make sure that this comes together in the way that is needed for our students at LK Hall. But I can assure you, you are in phenomenal hands with Mr. Alfred and his team. And so I'm excited to hear where this goes. And if I can ever be of assistance, please let me know. I will be putting my contact information and email in the chat for anyone.
Fantastic. And thank you for taking time out to join us tonight. Again, if you're joining us on the Zoom call, You can, of course, we have moments for your input because we want to hear the community's input and the thoughts on the shaping of the vision for this new school. You can do so by raising your hand, using the interactions button in Zoom to raise your hand, or and at waste time, we will call upon you to actually unmute and to ask your questions, or you can ask your questions in chat. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, which we're excited to be able to broadcast the Facebook Live both in English and Spanish, simply make your comments as comments on Facebook, and we will share those and get those answered as well. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the Deputy Chief of Construction and Bond Services, Brent Alford, who will give us a little background and overview for tonight. Mr. Alford?
Hey, thank you for that introduction, Jackie. And Hall community, I'm excited to be here and excited to be serving you guys again. As Ms. Bell stated, I'm Brent Alford. I'm the Deputy Chief of Bond Construction Services, and I'd like to welcome you back to our second meeting. Quick overview, I want you guys to know you are all part of the historic $3.5 billion bond for Dallas ISD, which is the largest in the history of the state of Texas. And with this, we're going to impact a lot of lives in the city and improve it. The last time we met, you gave us your 3 big ideas, and we're going to carry that theme throughout this entire process. And just know this is a continuous process. We want your feedback. Our architects are here to listen. Our PMs are here to listen. And, these are just concepts and ideas. We're going to go back and forth because we really want you to take ownership and feel like a part of this team while we deliver this building to you. So this wouldn't be possible without the support of our trustee. So Trustee Mackey, thank you for supporting this bond program. But now it's time for the main show, and I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to our architects. So I know Patrick and Merriman Architects are here, so I'll kind of turn it over to them.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
Just real quick, we'd like to introduce ourselves. We have Jasmine Chavez. She's one of our project managers. We have Ellen, and then we have Patrick with Merriman Anderson Architects. And we're going to walk you through 2 options we've come up with for the new Hall Elementary School. And so, Jasmine, if you want to take it away.
Okay. So we will be asking for the community's feedback at the end of the presentation. So we will walk you through option 1 with a quick little overview of the existing site. So north is to the right in this document. The existing building, as you can see, is in tan, and you can see the current parking lots, the current drop-off drive, and the current administrative parking lot. West Illinois is to the left there. Keats Drive is on the top. Currently, we've heard from the community, we've heard from the teachers and the staff that the school, they like the layout, but they don't necessarily like the parking. It's a little too small, and what they'd like to see in a new building, which puts an emphasis on a innovative, modern library. And working with the constraints of the site, as you can see in red here, and with keeping the existing building open during construction, we'll present option 1. Option 1 is a 2-story building that works around the existing site, a single-story building that works around the existing site with a garden or playground in between the 2 wings, drop-off lane that comes to the west of the site, and a new parking lot on the north. And here we have the program roughly laid out for you to see. So you would have a parent drop-off that comes in and widens out to allow for multiple lanes and exit out through the north of the site, and a bus loop that will come through that north entrance down through cafetorium, easy drop-off into the morning breakfast time area, and exit out again through that loop. And there is also area for a early academics and special education drop-off closer to their academic wings. Do you want to add anything?
Just one thing to clarify. One reason why we're talking about the easement and why we have it shaded and why we're trying to maintain awareness of it is because that is how the utility company gets to your existing transformer and power supply and chillers. And we know it's important to keep that intact while construction is being conducted, because we know how important it is to keep the existing school open during construction. And so we are looking at layouts that preserve that power that you need in order to operate the building that you already have. And so that's a puzzle for us that we're working around, and we enjoy a good puzzle. And so that's why you see a little bit of a slant on the plan, and we're trying to use that as a design feature in the new facility. And once you get the building that you want, all of that will go away, and you'll have a new service, of course.
So advantages to this scheme, as Ellen said, is it has a bit of a slant, which incidentally offers the classroom wing excellent lighting. It won't be too harsh, it won't be too bright, it won't be too dark. You will hear us talk about this chiller constraint that we have highlighted here. It's one of the main driving points of the site, but Ellen has explained very well what it is, and I just want to make sure everyone's aware of why we seem to be going around it. This site provides another advantage is it creates this sheltered, kind of enclosed, safe space for a playground, and it puts the arts and the special education in between all of the learning, which was very important to Dallas ISD.
Absolutely, and I think that this is a good opportunity, especially for younger children, to have access to that outdoor space that still has a little bit of protection. And I know that in your existing facility, you're very proud of an outdoor learning space that you have in the courtyard of your building. And so this would be an opportunity to
replicate
that, exactly, to keep that feature as part of your community.
And again, this is the one-story scheme. So on to the second scheme. Oh, just kidding. Here are some preliminary mappings of what it would look like on your site.
And again, the way that we shaded the plan is the way that this mapping study is shaded, so that you can see sort of roughly where the cafeteria is, the gymnasium, the library, the administration. They're in turquoise, and then academic in gold.
This plan is flipped around, so West Illinois is at the top there, and you've got Keats Street on the right with the drop-off loop and the admin.
And we have a couple of views, don't we?
Yeah, we do. That covered entry is roughly the location of your existing chiller equipment, which that will be taking the place of. So West Illinois on the right, Keats down below, rotating around. Soccer fields, potential location for them beyond at the back of the site, close to the park, green areas. Rotating view. That back drive would be used mainly for service and not necessarily like an everyday use.
It's a fire lane for emergencies.
Right. Required for the site, but not necessarily part of the main circulation throughout day-to-day operations. So quick run through over those again. And option 2. This scheme involves a 2-story classroom wing, seen in yellow. The public amenity spaces such as cafeteria, storm shelter, admin, the entry all stay in roughly the same place, but we do some shifting around to get special education closer to the front for accessibility reasons and for keeping it central to the academic areas. And that pushes the arts and library media center out towards West Illinois. It provides a really nice opportunity to do something like really public on that side. The circulation is the same. We investigated an alternate site loop drop-off that would possibly increase parking, and that's something that we'd like the community and the school's feedback as well. So this is the alternate option of trying to extend that and bring it closer to the academic area for ease of access, encroaching on that easement a little bit. And here's that massing. So you can see the two-story classroom wing and how it affects the site. You get more green space to the south, opportunity for play area there, much larger, a little more open. And you have an opportunity to do something closer to the drop-off as well.
Certainly. As we were laying out the site and as we were laying out all the different functions for the building that you're going to need, one thing that we came across is the fact that the site is a little bit of a hill, and so the existing school is on the highest part, and then the land slopes downward, down toward where you see the soccer fields are, and then also down toward West Illinois Avenue. And you know, when you're looking at it from the street, it looks very gentle. It looks like a very gentle slope. But it's actually about, what, 15 feet?
Yes. So I think what that ends up doing to the building is that even though you have a two-story wing, after we finish grading the building and grading the site, the two-story wing won't look very massive on the site by any means. It'll kind of go along with the topography and step down and not be very obtrusive to the neighborhood. It won't be an eyesore or gigantic. It won't be imposing. So that's really not a concern with the two-story scheme, and we'll take advantage of the natural topography of the site. So here's a rotated view of the two-story scheme. So now we get into questions of architectural style. We've spoken to the community in our last meeting, and we'd like to present a few options. None of these are all or nothing. If you see elements you like, feel free to take notes, let us know, elements that you'd like, but we just want to show you some options for style. And it came up in the last meeting that the Latino Cultural Center seemed to have an influence on a local high school, and this school has a significant Latino population in the neighborhood, and we thought it might be nice to give a nod to that in the style. So here we have some buildings that show some influences and how they were implemented. It can be done through color, it can be done through massing, simplicity of materials, turns, reveals, shadows, lights.
Absolutely.
But here's some examples of how that could go.
And one thing that is so remarkable about Hispanic architecture and Mexican architecture especially is the way that it responds to the sun, and the way that it does that with vibrant color and geometry and beautiful courtyards, and even in the use of wood in their buildings, the textures that are so common are just very rich and very saturated.
Very bold, one of our big words,
exactly.
Big ideas.
And they are all sort of working together to respond to the sun and to shine when the sun shines, and to provide shade and to provide cool spots, and to use the light in the best way possible. And I know that, Dallas is a little bit farther north than Mexico, but we still have the sun, and it's still a concern for us. And I think that responding to it is a wise thing to design for.
We definitely think there are elements that we could pick and choose from examples like this that could lead to a really nice building for Hall Elementary.
Absolutely.
So keeping these in mind, we'll move on to our next examples, which we kind of like to refer to as a modern brick schoolhouse. And they use texture in the way that they turn the brick. You can see that some of these will alternate, push in, push out, create lines of bricks and patterns that will play along with the shadows of the sun to create patterns. but they're very traditional material, very cost effective too, but it can be used in some really cool ways. And so here's a few examples of that, and I think we have a few more here.
Absolutely. And I know that, you know, usually when people imagine a brick schoolhouse, they immediately imagine a red brick schoolhouse. But as you know, brick comes in a lot of different colors, and the existing building that you have is certainly a more blonde brick, and we can explore shades throughout the spectrum that we can avail ourselves of, and we can certainly, if we go toward brick, I think that we could imagine a palette that gives a nod to the existing building that you have with that blonde brick color.
That's a really good point. You could kind of bring in the old school into the new school by bringing in some of the similar color palettes that you currently have.
And as an example, in the upper left corner of this particular screen, you can see where there is sort of a couple of different colors of brick, a blonde and then a redder brick. The left center photograph is actually a school building that was created with recycled brick, and then we have a mix at the lower left of brick and different colored panels that is used in a school. The low center image here shows an example of using many different colors of brick in a very playful fashion, which I think is a really nice image.
Lots of colors, lots of way to use them, textures that we can implement. You can do multiple colors, like the bottom left, bring some texture, bring some pattern into it. I've done it before. It looks really cool.
Absolutely.
Next, a different kind of style would be a little smoother, kind of similar to some of the images we showed in the Latin images of stucco, of monolithic, of using the breaks in the wall, like the windows, to really pop the building and give it character that way with the positive and the negative space. It can be done really well, really efficiently too, and paint and integrated colors and stuff go a long way. And if you do a special moment, like in that middle left image of wood and metal panel, a little goes a long way and it really stands out.
Absolutely. Not only that, but stucco is a very economical material, and if you'll remember back to the slides on Latin architecture and Mexican architecture, it is used very frequently in those vernacular forms. So this last style, I like to call it just panels, because there's multiple kinds of panels. Like really commonly you'll see in these images metal panel, but there's also a product called fiber cement, and it's a little madder, but it gives a really nice warm pop of color. Like the bottom center image has a lot of fiber cement siding. It's almost like a wood look, but it's not. There's also actual wood siding panels. And you could they have a really modern monolithic look. They really create some great lines, and they can be used to make lots of fun forms. Here's some more examples. Stone panels, metal panels. Very modern, typically. Very cool, looking towards the future material-wise, and you can even see how they are used to create some really dramatic moments. Absolutely agree. And this is a relatively new material. It's not centuries old like brick is, and so it's coming into sort of an exciting moment, and we're just starting to see how versatile it can be as an exterior finish, and you can have different looks with looks that replicate wood or stone or panel or concrete. But it is very durable, it's very cleanable, it's pretty economical, and it's very, very versatile.
And it's becoming a really popular choice for schools that want to go a modern way.
Here are some examples further, and you can see where designers are starting to really, really celebrate the exterior skins of their buildings. And while I can't see something quite so flamboyant for an entire building, it would be a possibility to have something very, very expressive at a cafeteria.
Entry, library.
At an entry feature, at a library, exactly. If there's a place within the building that that you really, really want to emphasize, or that you really want to make a really wonderful space, I think that
she's got a good point. Don't
have
get
some
scared
options
of how flashy these look. You don't have to coat an entire building in any of these options. You
Of
can
course.
pick and choose. We can really celebrate moments and be more conservative and expressive in other places.
Certainly, and that's one reason why we gave some examples of more expressive images.
Okay. So I can quickly run through option 1 and option 2 again to refresh your memory, going backwards through these slides. Option 2, 2-story building, classroom wing.
Option 1, 1-story.
With the angled classroom wing.
With the angled classroom wing and a more enclosed outdoor space.
So keeping that in mind, our poll that I gave you a glimpse of at the end of here is going to ask you just 2 questions: what your preference is for option 1 or option 2, and what your preference is for material style. And there's also an option to write in, so feel free to write in if you'd like to see a combination of one or the other.
Absolutely. Or if you'd like to feature a particular area of the building that you think is
whatever fits in the little box, for sure. And let me quickly get the link copied into our chat. For easier access. And we'll come off presentation for a little while. We'll leave the screen up, but we'll let anybody else talk who would like to say anything and let you guys vote. Thanks.
Thank you. What a wonderful presentation. How exciting. Again, if you're joining us in our Zoom call, you can see the link that's in the Zoom call. We'll also share that on Facebook as well. If you're joining us via Facebook, you can make your comments and suggestions right in Facebook. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Yes, so if we have anyone that's currently wants to make any questions, have any questions or comments, now's the time to do so. Yes, Principal, go ahead.
I apologize. It looks like my hand was up from a previous session, but I really love the feature for option 1, where the building kind of had an enclosure similar to what we have now. We currently have a garden. I think that's one of the focal points for the community. And so I really like that feature. I just wanted to kind of mention that.
Wonderful. Anyone else have any comments or suggestions there? I think I hear someone else. Ms. Osborne, is that you?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to ask, because with that first option, that one academic wing is really close to Illinois Avenue, what are the plans as far as to keep the sound from being a disruption to classes?
Yeah. Am I on? Okay.
Yes, you're on.
There are. Thank you. That is a terrific question. There are different ways to mitigate sound, and certainly to mitigate the noise of traffic through different glazing options. That means different layers of glass in your window, and through soundproofing of joints and added insulation and other mechanisms like that. We are very attentive to the sound levels on Illinois, and that's one thing that we're going to be studying very, very closely to make sure that our sound transmission coefficients, our STCs, are where they need to be to facilitate learning.
So walls will be soundproofed to the maximum. The windows will be chosen in that regard. Possibly we even do a bottom like level of glazing that's a little more opaque, less transparent, so there's no visual distractions, but you've got plenty of light coming into the room still. There are ways to mitigate a loud street for sure, and we'll make sure to implement those if we end up going with a scheme that puts us closer to Illinois.
Thank you.
I believe you have your hand raised again.
Hi, I have a comment. I'm a parent.
Yes, go ahead.
Actually, I like option number 1 because of the garden area and the playground area that would be there. But would the children also have access to the soccer field, and does that belong to the school? If so, will there be any, I know basically it's the building, but if the soccer field belongs to the school, would there be any access for the children to have?
I think that depends on the daily schedule. I'm sure that children usually have a recess period after lunch or during different times of the day, and wherever they're able to play now, they would be able to play in the new facility. So as far as I know, they're fully welcome to use the soccer fields. And in addition, there are educational specifications from Dallas Independent School District that we're also required to follow. And they include things like an outdoor basketball court and soccer goals and things like that. And so we're going to make sure that all of those outdoor features are contained on the site as well. So that however the staff at school needs to schedule their day, they'll have all of the facilities that they need to do that.
I think there's a possibility for the older grades playground to be closer to these soccer fields, so they will be brought out and brought in during playtimes, and depending on how the school and we decide to access the site, they might be available after hours too. But that's a conversation we can have with the principal and how he chooses to lock the site off after hours. But we'll keep it in mind. We know that the soccer fields are important to the community.
Great. Do we have any other questions coming in? Any comments, concerns about anything? I know we talked about Illinois and the noise control and all of that, and having access to the green spaces and making sure we're creating that. How's the polling coming, design team? Are we getting some great feedback there?
We have 5 responses so far. And we've got, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 10 to 15 people that have joined us. So I expect a few more. So I'll give it another few minutes. Maybe people had a tough time getting into it, but we'll review here, let's say 2 more minutes.
Great. And again, if you're joining us here on within the Zoom call, be sure just raise your hand or go off mute and ask any questions, express any concerns or any preferences. If you're joining us on Facebook, be sure just to, again, ask questions, make comments, and make suggestions as far as your preferences in the comment section on Facebook. And we did have a couple of people to join us late on Facebook. Do you mind going back over, just reviewing those options one more time to make sure that all of our listeners are aware of the great plans and the options available for Hall?
Okay, of course. A quick overview. This is Scheme 1. It's single story. It creates a really nice enclosed courtyard here. Option 2, real fast, a 3D model of what option 1 would look like.
If you're just joining us, the yellow area at the closest end that you see is the cafeteria. The green area is the gymnasium. The red is the library. The turquoise is the administration. The purple is the special education suite. And the blue, the darker blue, is the art suite.
Okay. This scheme will show a 2-story classroom wing, and it creates an opportunity for a larger playground that we can screen off from Illinois, but I feel like safety could be a concern with this one, and I want to assure everyone that we would do everything to make sure it is a secure playground. And it rearranges library, special education, and arts a little bit, but cafeteria, physical education stay where they are. Admin does shift over to the other side as well. And here is a 3D model of what that one would look like. They both feature this parent drop-off loop that would run on the lower side of Keats Drive one way and come out on the north side of Keats Drive, where buses would also be coming in, looping down and dropping off closest to the cafeteria and looping back out again. A quick run through of some inspiration images for potential architectural styles for the school. We describe them as Latin influenced, lots of use of color, simple forms, bright, vibrant, like moves, choices. Second would be a modern brick schoolhouse vibe, traditional material used in more modern ways. You use patterns, you use colors, and banding and choices of openings to really make your point with these kinds of buildings. We call this one minimal stucco. You are more simplistic in your forms, but you express yourself through things like color and materials. Can be really nice if done well. You can see that they chose to do these like 3D elements for the windows in the image, like in the upper right. I've done something similar. The light plays off of it really well. It helps with shading if you orient it correctly so that the classrooms don't get too bright and hot if they're facing south or west. It can be done really cool. Opportunity to do lots of other materials like wood and metal to bring little pops to these kinds of buildings. More panel. So these are metal panel types and wood panel types and fiber cement panel types, and they really play off of their own materiality. You can do things where you like mix up the colors and create patterns with them. You can do really big, bold moves with them for sure. Here's an example of them using different colors to kind of express themselves. And that's a quick recap, again, for those of you just joining us. I would like to share that we've got a pretty unanimous response for the option 1, the single story, 8 for that. We're a little more split on style. It seems like there was kind of a popular choice with the Latin, but also with the panels. And then third would be stucco and, no, brick is more popular, stucco panels, but we only have a few responses. It's a nice sample of what the community is thinking.
Well, and I think that we can also have a Latin influence that uses different materials.
What this tells me is that there seems to be a little bit of everything, and we can definitely explore how to get a good economical building that looks modern, but is still representative of the community. And we'll come back with something more decisive for the next meeting, but it seems like the people like option 1.
We are in agreement on a single story building.
Yeah. What do y'all think? Option 1.
Principal, teachers, any comments?
I still have a question about the park. So I do understand that there would be access to the soccer fields over here on the bottom right. I'm just having, I guess maybe because of I'm looking at the top view of how accessibility would be for teachers and students. Because to me it looked like distance-wise, it looks a little far. So I just wanted to get clarification on the how they would have accessibility to that.
So right now we're working with the constraints of the existing building, as you know. So you can kind of see that the parking lot is currently where the existing building would be. So essentially how the timeline of construction will go is the existing building will be in session as we build the new construction. And then after new construction is built and ready to go, we tear down new construction is built, ready to go. We tear down existing building and we start working on the site. It just kind of works out, and it was a comment from DISD that they would like the parking a little closer to the building. Another possibility would be to put the parking further away, kind of closer to where the soccer fields are, and put the playground where currently the parking is shown. But it's something we can discuss with DISD and with Hall and see what they think.
Sure. Another thing to consider is that as you look at the existing building, that square shape over on the left-hand side of the existing building footprint is where the current cafeteria is. And so if kids are coming out to recess after lunch, which many of them do, the distance between the play fields and the cafeteria is actually not that different. And it's maybe even a little bit closer. So while getting to your classroom might be a little bit longer, the distance from the fields to the fields from the cafeteria is not that different at all.
But we can work on the site plan with Hall and with DISD, and maybe we'll make some adjustments.
I have a three-pronged question. The first one would be about the roof and the decleve. Did we decide if it's going to have one? We run into some trouble with flat roofs in the past.
The roof will be considered a flat roof, but it will not be flat as some of the older roofs were when we had the old ballasted roofs that actually had no slope in them. This roof will have a minimum 1/4 inch per foot slope, which is required by code.
It's what every roof has, really, and
well,
nowadays.
Yes, nowadays. And then we'll have the adequate drainage, and we'll do all the drainage studies for that and sizing of the pipes. So we'll have that taken care of.
It'll have way more slope than you're used to.
Thank you. And then the cooling system, where will it be housed in the first design, scheme 1?
We still have to evaluate our options on that, whether we want to do a cooling tower or if we want to do zones with rooftop units, and that's still something that we're vetting out with mechanical engineers for the project.
Thank you. And then my last question is there a difference in longevity between the material that's used on the outside? And if there is, can we maybe use that or translate that to getting amenities in the interior?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Are you asking about like whether the money will be spent on the outside or on the inside?
About the economy?
So yes, I'm asking about the economy of material use. You know, as we make the selection for the material that's being used on the outside, let's say we go with a cheaper material on the outside, and if there's a like drastic difference between using, you mentioned stucco versus brick, is there a difference in longevity, and is there a difference in cost? And if there was a difference in cost for a cheaper option, could we translate those cost savings to some of the interior amenities?
So in order of cost, I would say that brick masonry is the cheapest option. No, stucco is?
Stucco would be like the least expensive. And it would require the most diligent maintenance. Masonry and panel are comparable in price, and with each of those materials, you can spend as much as you want to. So some of these more flamboyant accent pieces that we've seen in the panel systems, for example, those would be much more expensive, obviously.
And that's low ends and high ends, for sure.
Exactly. And again, with brick, you know, if we were going to really go crazy with a lot of different colors and a lot of different bonding patterns, then certainly we could spend plenty of money that way. But I don't think that we intend to do that, and I don't think we need to do that on a project like this. I think that we can make a very good impact. Regardless of what we end up choosing, I think we can make it work for us very well and very efficiently and economically.
So what I find really often that schools do is that they'll do something fairly economical for the body of the building, and will pick their moments to really highlight what an interesting and beautiful material.
Absolutely.
Like we mentioned earlier, the entry is a really popular spot to put some extra effort into. The library on the exterior, another popular spot, and maybe in general the cafeteria, which is a much bigger volume, but there tends to be more glass, which is another material you have to take into consideration when doing all this, how much glazing you want to do. But there's ways to do it. Like, we don't have to have a lot of these crazy moments. These are more costly options, but you can have a few and you can do them just right where it won't be an impossible option to consider.
On the inside and on the outside.
Yeah.
I think that the fundamental goal in using the budget that we have is to make sure that it is invested wisely in the places where it matters most, like in the library and the cafeteria, and making sure that those places that are special to students and families are good looking, that are exciting places to be and exciting places to learn.
Whole thing won't be expensive. The whole thing won't be cheap. Like, we as designers will help you choose your moments, and so at the end you'll have a nice goal.
Any difference in longevity for the materials?
What's the longest lasting material? Brick.
Yeah.
And I'd say maybe stucco ends up having a lot of maintenance, so the least longevity.
Principal, before we go to Miss Elise, I see you have your hand raised. If you could just expand a little bit to give a little bit more guidance to the architects referencing as far as interior enhancements, just kind of given so we can make sure we have that big idea going forward. If you about what you had in mind, or just expand upon it more, so we should make sure that we're all on the same on the same page as far as what you're actually talking about.
So we are a personalized learning campus, and one of the things that accentuates the building would be features like flexible seating, nooks and crannies where kids can group together or go for independent study. So that's what I was referring to. Obviously looking at longevity first, right? We want to make sure that this building serves this community for decades to come, that it's going to be maintenance is low, and that it's in good standing health for our students and our community members. And so and then focusing on the interior and having those accent pieces on the interior as well.
Okay, great, thank you. I think Miss Solis, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I did. Okay, so I have two comments. I know that one of the first comments is toward the AC unit. Well, we have knowledge. My husband actually works in AC, so he was saying that the rooftop units would be better because it would have more access if something does happen, and it won't affect the whole school. Versus the chiller, if something happens, then it would affect every class, every area. And so that's one of the comments I wanted to make. The other one was as well, the brick would help insulate the school better, and it's more durable as well. And I understand like Stucco, it is a lot of maintenance that has to go in with that, especially we have younger kids. You never know if they, I mean, buildings nowadays aren't as well made as buildings were back then. I went to OK Hall when I was in elementary. So that building, the structure is very strong. It is brick. And so my concern would be something that, you know, should be there for years to come, which brick to me is a better option. And just the rooftop units in order for the AC, you know, not to affect every room. If something goes wrong with the chiller, I think the rooftop unit. I know that you're talking about trying to save money, but we also have to try to see what's better. I mean, if you save money in some areas, it affects other areas.
Okay, thank you so much for those comments. And we also have a comment in the chat room. In both options, is there a cafetorium or can there be a separate auditorium?
So the DISD education specifications are calling for a cafetorium. I understand that the existing building does have a separate performance space, and it's been communicated to us that you would like a standalone performing arts space, but we're just showing currently what was prescribed to us by DISD, and if we have opportunity to add a performing space as an alternate, we could consider it, but currently there is no plan for a standalone performing space.
Right now, our program calls for a cafetorium with a stage, and that is the auditorium that we have been directed to provide to you.
Okay, thank you.
So one item I just like to discuss with everybody or get some opinions on between the two options. Obviously, there's a unanimous direction with option one, but something else that did differ between the two schemes and haven't heard any comments back are the drive lane, and because that's got some possibilities between in option one. Is there any thoughts, opinions on that? You know, just to kind of shed a little more light on that situation in dealing with the city of Dallas. There are some limitations of where we can put curb cuts on a street, and being able to utilize an existing curb cut goes a long way. And so the drives shown are on the existing curb cuts. They will be modified, but what we have shown here is bringing that the drive lane. This option here, it does make some curves, you know, a little maneuvering, but it does get the drop off closer to the building, closer to that front entry.
Closer to special ed.
Yeah, and then
early education.
The other option, this other option is a cleaner drive because it's a straight in and just making a right turn, but it creates a little more separation. Are there any thoughts or feelings on that from anybody?
I do recall that was one of the asks that we had, that you know, the drop off for early learning, our pre-K students would be closer to the building. So personally, I don't speak for the entire group, but I know that is a concern, you know, child safety, making sure our students can get off, you know, inclement weather, any of those things, you know, the quicker they can get from the car into the building, the better off, I think.
Describe your after school pickup. Do you have a lot of kids that sit outside the front doors waiting for their parents to come and get them? And
no,
when you need to place the babies?
Not currently. We're using a system of Excel sheets we dismiss from inside the building. And so parents will approach the building, provide the information that's required, and then we call the students and they come out one at a time.
Oh, wow. Okay. One other question we did have is, how many school buses do you guys currently utilize?
We do not have any school buses that we utilize on campus. currently.
Do you expect to have any as the school meets its 650 capacity?
Yes. So my understanding is projections would increase by about 200 to 250 students. And let me rephrase that. We do have a few school buses, but they're for our FLS and TC units.
They're for the what?
For our units, our special units.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very well. So favored towards this curved drop-off that gives a covered entry and an early education, special education drop-off lane? Okay. Thank you for your feedback. I don't think there's anything else. We still have just the 8 responses on our poll.
Great. Well, I think that we're getting some great feedback from our community on this and on this project, to giving some good direction to go back. I want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to our bond website at www.dallasisd.org/bond 2020 meetings. So if you know of someone who was unable to join us tonight and still would like to have more information about the project, please direct them to dallasisd.org/bond 2020 meetings. There's also a link there where you can still ask questions and provide input, and we will share that with the design team as well. I know that Trustee Mackey would love to hear from you. Any thoughts that you may have on this as we're kind of winding down for the night's meeting.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for the participation, the feedback, the great questions here. I've been taking a note of all of the items, just like I know that Mr. Alfred and his team have been doing, to go back and see if there is anything that can be done, whether it's around the different buses or the pre-K drop-off, or whether it's around the soccer fields. And so I look forward, there's going to be a number of processes like this where you're going to come back and say, all right, based on the feedback we received, now here's what we've kind of gone with. So I would assume, and Mr. Alfred can correct me, one of the next stages we'll come to is so now that we know we're going towards the direction of the one story and got some good feedback on the outside, is there might be a more detailed version that takes that feedback into account, along with any others that have been put forth. So really looking forward to helping with this process and making sure that your voices are heard in this and we get to an amazing school. So thank you all so much.
Thank you again, Trustee Mackey. And what a great lead-in, Mr. Alfred. I was just about to call on you to give us next steps.
Yeah, Trustee Mackey is exactly right. From this point on, we're going to start meeting with some smaller groups, some academic groups, and start trying to get some of the programming needs and fill some things out, as well as work on this exterior and come back based on the feedback we received from you guys. Come back probably, and I'm looking at October, November timeframe to sit back with the group, let you know what we've heard, kind of show you what we've developed from that point on, as well as some programming inside the building. So look forward to seeing us in small groups and the bigger group in October, November.
Wonderful. I don't know. I think our principal, if you would like to close us out today with any remarks you would like to have, that'd be great.
Again, I just want to reiterate, thank you everyone for your time. Again, this is not just about, our campus, it's about the community as a whole. It's going to be a hub. I think it's going to lead this community into the future. It's going to be a bright future for our students, and it's a place where they're going to get to come to school and dream big every day. And so I want to thank you again for your time and attention. Le quiero dar las gracias a todos por su tiempo y atención aquí en esta noche. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Okay, great. Before we leave tonight, we do have one final question. Mr. Alford of the project team, what's the timeline on the building from construction through opening?
Yeah, we're thinking about a fall opening of 2024. So we have about 12 months of design time allotted for this project. And so we'll be bidding around this time next year and hopefully start construction. Like I said, construction will go on in the empty field while the existing school remains. Once we finish construction, then we'll switch over and demo the existing school and build a parking lot and ball field. So looking at 2024.
Fantastic. Again, to keep up to date on this and other Bond 2020 projects, visit our website at www.dallasisd.org/Bond 2020. We hope everyone has a wonderful evening and good night.